Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, and this video we're going deep on the boys. Episode 4 is now here and it reveals a lot of Homelander truths. It's also full of parallels to the first Avengers movie, Captain America the Winter Soldier, X-Men 2 and many other comic book films. Maybe a lower key episode this week, but it's got some great character moments and any scene with Soldier Boy is solid gold, baby.
Fab Five Freddy told me everybody's fly. DJ's spinning, I said my.
Yes, even that. Anyway, there's so much I want to break down, so let's get into the boys.
No, not serving the Lord. Being the Lord.
Now we pick up directly after last week with Homelander staring at a photo of his son. He's taking a lovely trip down memory lane after smashing Ryan's head in. Good times. He expresses shock that Ryan's alive later on, and it's like Invincible when the Viltrumites test their young. His reminiscing is cut short by Firecracker's arrival, and it's here I realise that her costume was very much like Starlight's second one. Both have ankle-breaking high boots and a very revealing bodysuit, which is funny as they're opposites of each other. Annie rejected the costume the first chance she could and became an enemy of Homelander when she realised just how awful the Seven were. Juxtaposing this, Firecracker revels in what the Seven and Vought get up to. In some ways, Annie is to blame after sharing a vicious rumour about Misty when she was younger, and this led her down the path she's on now. There's kind of a running joke I want to point out as well that we haven't really pointed out before, and it's that the Seven never has 7 members in it, which I appreciate. He seems confused by her smell though, as all he can smell is his father. She says it's her new perfume, General Lee's secret, named after the Confederate general. It's very funny that she says this in front of the massive American flag, as General Lee was a traitor to the nation. But Homelander can still smell his daddy. We know that Soldier Boy cranked that, and Firecracker seems petrified. It's kind of like what happened with Dognot and Maverick, and it highlights the extra level of powers that Homelander has, as that scene is like the best ability of another soup. And I think this is like the first time we're hearing about it with him. But yeah, it was quite a dumb decision to try and get revenge on the petty man-child who can't control his power or rage. She explains that they were merely prepping for an interview though, and I'm sure that Soldier Boy was a very cunning linguist. Now Homie doesn't seem to care that she's lying because, as he explains, he was visited by an angel. He's gone fully off the deep end now and is beyond delusional. He says that he's the Messiah and Saviour of the world and she can barely contain her shock. But he's not the Messiah, he's a very naughty boy. Also, at this point, I'll be honest, I think Eric Kripke needs to tell us next week's lottery numbers because they constantly seem to release the episodes the week of a big talking point in politics that's reflected in the entry. And this was written in 2024. I did wonder if this would be the start of her realising that she's made a huge mistake and in going all in on Homelander's regime, she's basically lost everything that she stands for. She shouldn't be happy at all as she preaches the gospel, but Homelander's perverting the teachings and making himself the Messiah. Homelander finally realises that Firecracker's known he's always been special, and he says that despite cutting her off after she almost died giving him breast milk, she still comes back to him. This highlights though that all of his relationships are transactional and he's just using her after realising she can spread his message for him. As he said, Jesus would have killed for their marketing. I mean, it was her or the faithful sheriff. She says she would do anything for him though, but is still unsure about the whole thing. This constant anything has of course been something that's reoccurred with her character, but here it feels a lot different to how she said it before.
I mean anything. 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 Okay. Well, you know I would do anything for you, sir. Thank you.
In the past, she was clearly down for anything, but now she's just saying it to save herself. Homelander is kind of becoming the warning about following false idols, and he's broken a number of the 10 commandments. He's of course going against thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not bang your neighbour's wife or something, and thou shalt not make for yourself an idol. Think I nailed them. Highlights the hypocrisy of people who use religion to attack others though, just like Firecracker. She uses religion to denounce people like the Starlighters, but is accepting of Homelander perverting the Christian faith. Things then escalate over the course of the episode, indicating that the show is leaning into more of the comic book stuff with Homelander and O-Father. Meanwhile, Billy has taken Ryan to his base to heal. He's alive, albeit battered and bruised. Billy compares the father-son fight to The Empire Strikes Back, and their Darth Vader fought his son Luke Skywalker and left him at death's door. He was then saved by Leia and Lando, much like how Billy came and rescued him last week. And Chewie as well, can't forget about Chewie. Ryan has never seen it though, as his mother wouldn't let him watch anything beyond the first film. He didn't even know Vader was Luke's father. Wait, what? Star Wars is of course all about rebellion standing up to an empire though, which is a lot like the show. Now in his youth, Becca was very protective of him and he had no idea what NBA 2K or PewDiePie were. But he was allowed to watch Screen Crush. What? And his mother even let him watch the Colton ones. Fucking hell.
Mom, can I see them?
When you're old enough, we can talk about it.
The only thing Ryan knows though is that the guy from Regarding Henry was in them. It was only nice feel-good movies for the lad growing up. Billy says that Ryan should have waited until the virus was ready and that he needs his Dagobah moment in order to defeat his father. He's a long way from this and I feel like Ryan will be the one to beat his dad, which changes things up from the comic book ending. In that, it was, well, we'll not spoil it, but it was someone with a direct genetic connection to Homelander. So that could be a son or maybe even a father for the show, as we of course know Soldier Boy isn't exactly a fan of him either. But Ryan dips and is basically going to go off and have that Dagobah moment, but no one is really looking out for him. Billy wants to use him as a weapon, and his dad's turned into a religious cult leader obsessed with immortality. I feel like this isn't the last we've seen of Ryan though. Cutting to Mother's Milk, we see him putting that fit on like he's Oppenheimer suiting up. We can also hear The Rock Wilder by Method Man and Redman as he trims up his beard. Those two have of course worked together on countless songs at this point and are a big partnership in hip hop. I did wonder if that was commenting on how Billy and Mother's Milk seem to be kind of coming back together in this episode. Method Man's music is also nothing new for a comic book adaptation, as it was used in Luke Cage. The rapper even made a cameo in an episode. Milk also wore a Wu-Tang t-shirt in season 2. The hip-hop shirts also continue as well, as we can see that he's wearing one for Salt and Pepper. The beard is fully back now as well, and this is something that was notably missing from season 4. To the point like the lack of facial fuzz even led some viewers to believe that Laz Alonso had been recast. The reality was though the actor just lost weight between season 3 and 4, but the guy's got his groove back after losing all hope in the freedom camps. Now it's at this point that Frenchie explains it will take weeks to get the virus up and running again after Samir and Zoe wrecked it, so they decide to head to Fort Harmony. We can also see with Huey that he's wearing a trademark band shirt, with this one being for Air Supply. They sang the absolute classic I'm all out of love, I'm so lost without you, and he's kind of lost without Starlight this episode. Now the problem with going to Fort Harmony is that 1, there might not be any V1, and 2, there's a thing that's killing Boy Scouts. As we learn though, it's simply a case of toxoplasma. Huey also points out that Homelander has Stan Edgar and is working his way to getting V1. If he gets it, it's game over, man, as he'll be a psychotic immortal despot. If Huey and co get it though, they can save Annie, Kimiko, and even Billy. Huey is also taking charge of this group, and his confidence seems to have really increased between seasons 4 and 5. He hasn't lost himself like Billy or potentially Annie, and it's showing his major growth from a meek, scared normie to almost leading the boys. Something that also happens in the comics, which was needed for the final few issues. That's what this episode teases, and is something that we'll break down in the spoiler section. The Huey/Billy relationship though is at an all-time low, as Huey blames Billy for scaring Ryan off. Billy claps back though, asking where Starlight is. She flew off at the end of the last episode, as she doesn't want anything to happen to Huey. She's basically dealing with a lot of trauma, and thought that Huey was the one who died after Maverick was turned into Goose. It's a sore subject for Huey though, who's had somewhat of a rocky relationship with Annie since the shapeshifter. Like the comics, they have their ups and downs, and I do wonder if Billy will try and drive a wedge between the pair. That's mainly because he and Mother's Milk secretly want to destroy the V1 instead of using it to save their friends. We then catch up with Annie as she meets her father for the first time in 20 years. It's nice seeing how he juxtaposes her mother, and though he's shocked by her arrival, he just continues sweeping the back porch. As we learn, he's been hiding from her, and we get a major bombshell that she also has a half-brother. The news isn't all happy though, as he is part of the Manosphere and absolutely loves the Deep, who looks fantastic, I must say. Just like with Firecracker, the hypocrisy's on show as Annie's brother's wearing a Chromacopia hoodie. This is the 2024 Tyler the Creator album. That's an artist who's been rounded up along with Chapel Roan and locked up in freedom camps. So he calls Starlight a terrorist and watches the Deep's podcast, all while wearing an enemy of the regime's merchandise. The fact they have a sibling as well is a shock to both of them, and I like it when the show visits the general public. It's kinda similar to how we saw Monique's new husband fall into the Vought pipeline, and we also saw Stormfront radicalize a dude in season 2. So it's interesting to see how Vaught's lies affect everyday people. Overall though, this whole thing with Starlight feels a bit like the bit from X2 where we have someone's family even cautious of them because of anxieties that have been pushed by the government. We then could assist a sage who has what seems to be an antique Ori. And I did wonder if she's taken inspiration from her former boyfriend Thomas Godolkin. He had a room full of collectibles that wasn't problematic at all. She's talking on the phone, and as we learn in the first 2 episodes, the US is broke after funding the freedom camps. The president is seeking her sage advice, and she says he should defund the schools and give out vouchers for Homelander's academies. Those are connected to the Homelander youth, which will sweep up the kids and indoctrinate them at a young age. I feel like Kripke's been very clever in showing the erosion of public schools and education in the boys' universe so far. Like Gen V Season 2 had the kids hiding out in a rundown library that had a book burning, which is something that we also have seen this season as well. God U was also completely pointless, as the classes were just teaching them how to be influencers. And even the crime fighting class was a facade. The boys are also hiding out at a rundown school this season, which shows Vaught's war on the school systems working. Fascist regimes always target education, as it's the easiest way to ensure the next generation backs them. She then mentions wokeness as an excuse, which we've seen a lot over the course of these last couple of seasons. At this point, it's a catch-all term that is just bandied about to try and brush things aside. Any criticism, that's woke, that mate. And so far, it has been working for them. Soldier Boy then comes barging in, angry that a black woman summoned him, and it looks like she has a sculpture of Nefertiti, who's a former Egyptian queen. We're reminded that he's an absolute freak, as he mentions the only black woman who bossed him around was Nell Carter, the late actress. As long as there was a cock ring and a tub of Crisco. How very Last Tango in Paris. But yeah, I'm not surprised at all that this is the guy who founded Herogasm. Now we learn he's supposed to be filming a movie and is denied his rider, which is just a big bowl of coke. It's not the 80s anymore, lad. Which is a shame. It's destroyed our culture. We can tell that Sage is manipulating Soldier Boy here though, and stating that he should take it up with Homelander. But he has to wait until his son's back from Fort Harmony, you know where to go. Playing into his hatred, she successfully gets him to go there. Now I still don't fully know what her endgame is, as she's smart enough to know that Homelander cannot be controlled. I do wonder though if her being ostracized by Vought has basically made her craft this big way to expose the Supes in the most massive way possible, and through Homelander show how unhinged they are. If all of them are complicit in crimes, it'll then fully take down the regime, and she can use the Supes like Soldier Boy to take out the other Supes once and for all and destroy the organization. Now there has been the thought that she is just loyal to Homelander, but yeah, from this conversation I think something else is going on. However, like Firecracker, she may simply enjoy being in charge. Something she implied in season 4, she mentioned to Newman that no one listened to her when she was a kid. But yeah, she's clearly wanting to take Homelander down, and Soldier Boy is someone she can control. All he needs is a bottle of JD, loads of drugs, and a bunch of gilfs. If she can take out Homelander though, then she can rule without the face of Vought making insane or irrational decisions. Now, we know the whole experience of becoming a suit was very traumatic for Soldier Boy, and it's like a dark, twisted version of the MCU's Captain America origin tale. It's also a mirror of Homelander's. Soldier Boy was a lab rat who was made to be a suit, and several other people died while going through the experiments. Due to Stormfront being married to Vought as well, I'm guessing they perfected the formula through testing before giving it to her. We'll likely see this all in Vought Rising, which should be coming out next year, I imagine. Cutting to the other group heading to Fort Harmony, we get our first hint that all is not right. The boys are back at each other's throat, and MM's tired of Billy's bitching while the Cockney keeps cutting off Kimiko. Huey then trips over and sees the first of many dead bodies. The episode explains that the people who stumbled upon this place ended up killing each other due to the effects of what we see later in the groundwater. He's rightfully horrified by it and shocked that Mother's Milk and Billy make jokes about it. They show zero respect, which is something that Soldier Boy and Homelander also display later on. Makes me wonder if Compound V doesn't just make you superpowered, but it also destroys any chance of empathy and kindness in most people. And this would explain why 99.9% of the Supes are dickheads. Now throughout the show, we've seen as the hate from the Nazis has basically carried on throughout history. It started with Dr. Vought out in Germany and then came to America during Operation Paperclip. The corporation was then created that pushed the hate message to the masses through Vaught's propaganda. So they've basically taken hate from another way, and through V pushed out hate further across America. At its core, we see a creature that makes people turn on each other, and it all perfectly builds into the themes of division. It and, well, Vought pull out the worst in us, and it's such a good message about not following false idols who corrupt us and make us not hit the thumbs up. Naturally at this point though, they think there's a huge monster in the woods, but the real monster is us. So deep. If you're as deep as us as well, then why not check out our Realize, Real Lies shirt. There's also our Soldier Boy one too, a full collection of things inspired by the boys, and also Invincible as well, right at that merch store below. Plus there's lots of big discounts for the summer, and it all goes towards helping videos like this get made. Speaking of the Deep, we do a diabolical cut from the maggots on the head to him eating sushi in his podcast studio. I had hoped that he'd start to realise how evil Homelander is after A-Train tried to talk some sense into him. Now though, I can't see that happening as we see how far he's gone. This episode's theme is all about people turning on each other. We have Soldier Boy and Homelander, the boys, Starlight's family turning on her, and even the Deep is turning on the fishes. Everyone is getting divided because of the hate that's being pushed onto them, and it's something that we see throughout the world every single day. Like Homelander though, the Deep is a narcissist, and he says that being eaten by him is the highest honor a fish can have. Black Noir then finally speaks and knocks the platter out of Deep's hands. We did wonder what was going on with him, but yeah, seems like he's still the actor and not just someone dressed up. The pair of course have had beef though after Kevin stole Stan Edgar from him as the guy needed to win. Noir 2.0 says he's gone full method and has given everything to the role of Black Noir. We thought that Noir wasn't happy with him, and some even suspected the Homelander clone to be under the mask. Instead though, he's just been trying to be the most accurate Black Noir he can be. In season 4 he constantly brought up his motivation and even questioned how Noir would enter a crime fighting moment. But this character is starting to slip, and I do think that he may even kill the Deep. But like Homelander, the Deep has betrayed the only person who actually likes and stands up for him. Noir 2.0 defended him when people called him stupid and made fun of his powers. It's a lot like what happened with the real Aquaman, with that character being seen as a joke for years and years and years. It then leads the Deep to drop my favourite line of the episode.
Well, let's not make a federal case out of this, Broby Wade.
The pair's relationship is ruined though, and Noir asks if the Deep is more important than the relationship Homelander has with his father. It's similar to what A-Train tried to say to him, and the Deep is trying to get acceptance and respect from someone who only loves themselves. That will never work, and I feel like this is going to lead him to do more and more despicable acts for Homelander in a downward spiral of trying to gain his leader's love. Much in the same way that Homelander's also trying to gain the love of other people. Ultimately, Deep will just be cast to the side though if he pushes back on anything, but for now, it's a dog-eat-dog world.
Is that what you think the phrase is? Whatever.
We then cut to Ashley's bedroom as Oh Father has turned into Oh Daddy, eh? As we know, she loves being a dom mommy, as we saw with Cameron Coleman and in Tech Knight's dungeon. She also has a mirror up on the wall as well, so the face on the back of her head can make eye contact. We then see a Miss Trunchbull-sized shot put used as a mouth gag, and also some stuff I don't recognise at all. I like holding hands and nothing else. David Diggs is hilarious though as Ashley's sub, and he says no ball gag can hold his scream when she's punishing his sin pit. He also remains in his costume as well, which is adorned with crosses, showing how hypocritical that he is. He's preaching against the supposed degeneracy on the left while having the biggest butt plug ever shoved into his sin pit. And we can see he even aches when he gets up. And 8, we're pointing out things you might have missed. Every detail will be covered. He can't hide anything from Ashley though. She can read his mind and learns that the church is broke. This makes him desperate, and like Firecracker, he should be against Homelander's blasphemy, but pretends this is a miracle from God as a way to make money. And yet, no doubt, he's misappropriated his church funds. This is something that's hinted at when she mentions Tammy Faye of the PTL church, whose husband used church funds for his own gain. Ashley also mentions that the church has 2 Gulfstream jets. This is something that might be referencing Kenneth Copeland and his love for private jets. There was a big controversy around them, but to be fair, he got one from Tyler Perry. Oh Father says he's at $150 million in the hole due to attendance and donations being down. People are losing their faith. People are getting rounded up on the street for even liking a Starlight post, and thus they need a second coming to appeal to the wallets. This stuff would be a scandal in the making, but thankfully for him, his solution barges into the room after she calls him the emissary of God. Thought it was hilarious as well how she said it almost smells like Waffle House. They keep mentioning that, and as a Brit, I have to wonder what goes down in those establishments. It's not in the UK, don't know what it smells like, but I can imagine of what she says here. Sounds like the worst Wetherspoons you can find. Cutting back to Fort Harmony, the boys then arrive and head towards the building. The chemicals have got Huey acting brave, and he then criticizes Annie. He says that he almost died and then she ran off after making it about her, even bringing up the shapeshifter who touched him. She never asked if he was okay, and during that simply made it about her, which is something which I thought was quite weird at the time, and I know it got a bunch of backlash online. Shows again though that something is up as he's acting out of character, as it's not something he'd usually say, especially the point of calling her a bitch.
Jesus, sorry, I didn't mean for that to come out so harsh.
As they get closer, we can see a load of dead animals, and it feels like a horror movie. Like, oh, what if Cap and Natasha went to visit Camp Lehigh in the Winter Soldier, but found it was full of dead animals and people and stuff. But yeah, just like Zola was at the core of that, ruining the country, we have something similar going on here. We then get to see Starlight as she looks at a family photo of Vought. Her dad's new family are in front of the Homelander Extreme Flight, and it's a place that we saw during season 2. Also wonder if they had those Brave made veggie tacos. It cuts deep though, as she says how her father wouldn't take her, but he's gone there with his new family. Kind of like how your ex wouldn't do that thing for you, but does that thing for her new man. Which is of course watching Screen Crush videos naked. What? The stepmother then rushes in, and we can see there's a Homelander sign outside. It's a misdirection though, and he's not actually a true Homelander and has to keep up appearances as he's a deputy in the police. The police are an arm of Homelander's oppression, so they have to be 100% on his side. Again, even liking a Starlight post in the past can get you put in jail, so being her dad is going to cause a shitload of issues. So if he doesn't keep quiet, his family will be rounded up, and thus there's not really a lot he can do. It's a world away from her mother, who pushed her to be a soup and even had her sing adult songs at pageants. Now her father might secretly be a Starlighter, but her brother, as we mentioned, is all in on the propaganda. I did wonder if Homelander might hold this family hostage, as it could be a way to bring out Annie, and yeah, the policeman knows, and I don't bloody trust him. But now though, she's accepted by her stepmother, and they're similar to Sam and Golden Boy's parents. Turned out they were nice and wanted to give him Compound V to hopefully fix his mental issues. This is similar to how Marie Moreau's parents accepted Project Odessa, as they were desperate to get pregnant. Vought is basically played on the vulnerable and then taken their kids and basically use them for their own gains. We then cut back to the 7th Tower and see Courtney Fortney moaning about lunch. This is a returning character from season 1 where she played a Vought production assistant. She also appeared in Gen V and has seemingly rose through the ranks. There she was coordinating the reveal of Andrew and Marie's new ranks, so yeah, done well for herself, I have to say. We then see the Worm again, who's back working with Vought. As we said in our episodes 1 and 2 video, we thought he'd end up like the stage manager, and to be honest, he still might. He asks for someone to go and get him a specific solo, as he only eats that as he's a worm. He's also wearing another TV show hoodie. This time it's Vaught's Summertime Clubhouse, which is a parody of the Mickey Mouse Club. We heard in season 2 how Gecko was a member of the cast, and it's something that a lot of the stars have gone through. We see that along with Ashley and Homelander, they're brainstorming how to present Homelander as the Messiah. On the whiteboard, they're asking if that's part of the established canon. They also wonder if they can throw out the old religions as myths and just say Homelander is the only god that ever was. Little typo there as well. This is them trying to work out his divine origin story though, just like how Vought came up with his origin story as an alien that was sent to Earth. That was obviously, a Superman parallel, but even Supes has been seen as a metaphor for Jesus now. He was originally created as a sort of take on Moses, a sort of updated one, but now, yeah, they've kind of pushed him towards that. Just shows though that every part of him is fake, and even his brand new divine right to rule is being manufactured in a writer's room. In the comics, this was done by the Legend, and I do hope we get to see the character again. I did wonder where my guy Seth Reed is, as he was still working for Vought as of Gen V Season 2. The Worm then suggests Homelander perform a live miracle on TV. One problem though, he can't actually do any miracles, so it would have to be VFX. I did even wonder if we'd get an AI video or something where we see him going through Jesus' miracles. Firecracker then says he could part the Red Seas and send some refugees back to where they came from. And I don't know if she understood the meaning of the Moses story. Courtney then roasts the Worm and his ideas, suggesting that Homelander fly to all the holy sites in the world and meet his followers in person. Behind her, we can also see a lot more potential ideas. These include baptizing Elon Musk and a Homelander daycare in addition to the Homelander youth. None of it is about actually helping the poor or curing the sick, and it's all just pretending to do these things, so he seems like something that he could actually do if he really wanted to. Vought has enough money they could change the world. Homelander obviously has incredible abilities, but he'd rather just be perceived as being nice rather than actually being nice. They even thought of an urban outreach with the line, "He's our homie and one nation under homie." Father then suggests Homelander sits on a throne on the Temple Mount for the poster and even slams the Bible. Again, showing more sacrilege. In the comics, Father was visited by Homelander at BelieveCon, which was the comics version of Capes for Christ. Homelander then asked him to join him after presenting the idea of super supremacy at Herogasm. He's skeptical at first and, like Ashley here, questions if people will support it. I mean, imagine proclaiming you're not only the son of God, but also all other religions avoid as well. Oh Father then explains that a Homelander church would print money and is thinking that this will get him out of debt. Also found it funny how Courtney calls Ashley Firecrotch, but Firecracker thinks she's referring to her. We can also see that the Turbo Rush cans have been changed to Homelander Turbo Rush. This is something we mentioned after seeing the advert at the camps, and Homelander has replaced A-Train fully as the mascot, which made him killing him and then throwing a funeral where he eulogized him even more fucked up. She explains that only 22% of the population would accept Homelander as the one true god, which looks a lot like the result of the 2024 election. The worm then mentions the numbers and says the suits never released their numbers. This is kind of similar to how we never really get proper viewing figures for streaming shows. He then says they need to tell a story and even brings up Joseph Campbell, who's the inventor of the hero's journey. It's been used as a staple for lots of countless stories, and even The Boys and Ryan's arc is kind of following in those footsteps. Stuff like a hero getting called up to do something, rejecting the call, then falling to the lowest point and then getting back up, the death of a mentor, that sort of thing. It's a trope though that's been absolutely done to death at this point, and his Lamplight A Light of Justice finale gets roasted. It got a D- on AV Club, and he tries to defend himself by saying he had to service 14 main characters. He also had to bring in people from the Avenging Squad prequel. We know that he hates finales, as he mentioned it to Kimiko in episode 1, and yeah, trust me mate, I was up 1 AM on Boxing Day and New Year's doing Stranger Things videos, so I know what it's like. Now the Avenging Squad were actually the name of Soulja Boy's first team in the comics, and it's actually pretty meta, as this season is laying the groundwork for Soulja Boy's spin-off Vought Rising. So Kripke is actually telling us how hard it is to include every character story in the season, while also setting up Vought Rising. Firecracker then says how the stuff that Jesus preached, like helping the poor and taking in foreigners, just doesn't sell anymore. She says that America is God's government and they are the chosen people. She even evokes Manifest Destiny, which was the belief that settlers in the US had the right to expand as far west as possible. Homelander will be presented as a true American hero, and God will finally be American. This is something that feels like it's referencing Watchmen, especially the line, "The Superman exists and he is American." The reporter who said that then said he was misquoted and that the line was actually "God exists and he is American." She then comes up with the name the Democratic Church of America, which I'm guessing is playing off the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. One problem as well is that he can't be called God, so Firecracker decides on the Prophet of America. It's kind of like BioShock Infinite, where a prophet created his ideal America as a theoretic police state.
The public won't accept it if we come out and call Homelander God.
But yeah, knowing Homelander, I feel like he's going to come out and say he's God, or maybe even say he's a doctor or something. We then cut to the father and son on a lovely hiking trip. Soulja Boy scoffs at Homelander's cape and says Orson Welles wore one to cover his fat ass. Homelander's got his cape stuck in a branch, and my guy should have had Edna Mode in his costume design team. It's funny seeing them walk as well, as Homelander could fly them there, but Soulja Boy refuses to be carried. This is something that we've seen in the comics as well, when the Seven had to carry Mr. Marathon and Black Noir. Soulja Boy also shows his disdain for human life, referring to the dead bodies as a couple of uggos. Homelander then asks why Soulja Boy is helping now. Later on we learn he agreed to help his son just so he could trap him, but he says he's doing it because Homelander looks up to him. Homelander says he never said that, but it's just very obvious to anyone that he has both mummy and daddy issues. In response to this, Homelander brings up Stormfront and is taken aback when he learns that Soulja Boy banged her a couple of times and jokes that they're Eskimo cousins. There has been the theory for a long time as well that Stormfront is in fact Homelander's mother, and that would make what he did very messed up. But Homelander explains that she's dead, and in season 1 she apparently took her own life by biting off her tongue. Soulja Boy doesn't believe she'd do that though. This is something we talked about around her death, as they just kind of had it off screen and didn't really give it any attention beyond the odd line. Sure, we saw her, she was burned up for a bit, but the death in itself was a bit unceremonious. We know that Aya Cash is back in the suit filming stuff of Vought Rising. There's been lots of stuff posted online, and I do wonder if this is laying the groundwork for her coming back, especially with us seeing Godolkin healed up from similar burns, albeit through Marie. We'll talk about that more in a bit though, but yeah, Clara is going to return in Vought Rising, which is being pitched as a murder mystery. So I am interested to see their dynamic, especially considering he was an American World War II hero and she was a Nazi. The boys then search through the files in the building and find a blueprint which Billy mansplains to Kimiko. The group's bickering gets worse as Huey lays into Billy again, calling him Father of the Air. There's a clue that they aren't themselves, as Huey looks like a junkie with red around his eyes, and then Billy claps back, roasting Huey for but turning his dad into a zombie and then killing him. Very fucking son of the year. While these two have had a complicated connection for some time, Huey then turns to Mother's Milk and calls him a pussy. This is because he blames Milk for letting Butcher pull him down. It's kind of true as well, but Milk stayed after being inspired by A-Train's words. Like him, the Seven would follow Milk's family everywhere, and it wouldn't be over until Homelander was defeated. Butcher then says a cracking line,
"Fucking nonce just called you a pussy. You gonna let him get away with it?"
and allow me to translate that for anyone outside the UK. Nonce means pedo. Butcher is like the devil on Milk's shoulder though, and for once the only sane person in the room's Frenchie. Even Kimiko lashes out at him, and Billy says how he liked her better when she was just a dumb animal. This actually foreshadows the end of the comic, which is something that we'll talk about in our spoiler section, but it's very much like the Avengers. In that movie, Earth's mightiest heroes argued and bickered as they were under the influence of Loki's scepter. Lots of home truths are said throughout the episode though, and we then cut to Starlight's father. Here we can see firecrackers squeak freak washing up liquid. Mason is just like your typical teenager though, with his music playing way too loud, and Starlight has to wear her stepmother's pajamas. Like the army, Supes are now in charge of local police departments, which is something Sage mentioned in episode 2. Since season 1, they've been trying to get Supes into law enforcement as it will offer big contracts. Livewire is in charge of this local area, and we saw him in season 3 as part of the in-universe reality show American Hero. He's a parody of DC's Black Lightning and also shares the name of DC's other Lightning-based character. And we learn that when Starlight's dad receives the order to round people up and take them to the freedom camps, he pretends to be ill so he doesn't have to participate in it. But the other deputies think Starlight is coming for their kids, and they fall in for Vaught's propaganda. It shows the other side of the situation she's facing and how it will be an uphill battle to stop Vought and Homelander. She can beat Homelander, but in the end, the public still believes the propaganda, which likely leads to a real prospect of martyrdom. Even like Germany had denazification post-World War II, and I do wonder if they're going to have to run similar programs to what Vaught's basically pushed into the people. The pair then have a heart-to-heart, as after he left, she thought that maybe he just didn't want her. However, he stayed up to date with her career and has kept all the clippings in an A-Train shoebox. With that clearly being a take on the Air Jordan brand. Inside the box we can also see a magazine cover and an article about her pageant where she sang "Hit Me Baby One More Time." There's also an article about her saving a family from a power line. Is that a Goofy movie reference? Brittany of course though went through the pageants as well, along with the Mickey Mouse Club, and was a young star who's since had issues because of it. He's also got a ticket stub for Dawn of the Seven, which is the parody of Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. It looks like it was shown in VMAX, which is the show's version of IMAX, and this is writing this on the week they've just announced Infinity Vision at Disney. They both agree the movie sucked though, which I'm sure Homelander would agree with as well. It's all lies from bloggers though, and we fans won with our #ReleaseTheBurt cut. He does say that he was proud of her though, especially when she quit the Seven, and we get some backstory on her parents' meeting. They met on a church trip to El Salvador, and it was Starlight's mother who sold him the idea of giving her Compound V. She thought that she could really save the world by making her a superhero. Which, yes, sounds like a good idea, but we know that it's just caused nothing but issues, and even to the point that she had to lie to Annie about her being born with powers. But this is what led them to argue, and as her dad says, her mother started to believe that Starlight was chosen by God. Perfectly mirrors the conversations currently going on with Homelander and shows how the pair are opposites. Starlight didn't want to be seen that way and even left capes for Christ because it mishandled religion. On the flip side of this, Homelander isn't religious at all but will weaponize it for his own personal gain. Her parents then drifted apart as he couldn't keep lying about the Compound V and he didn't want to shatter her dreams. She then says how she loves Huey but ditched him and is petrified that something could happen to him. Her father tells her that the people they love aren't a weakness but a reason that they fight. It's why A-Train had to defend his family, as well as the catalyst for Billy and Huey's revenge. Again, they're interrupted by Mason's music, and Starlight decides to try and talk to her stepbrother. Luckily, she's told to knock first because, well, I'm sure everyone knows what teenage boys are like. Cutting back at the boys, Frenchie's in charge and leading them into the lab. They can tell they're going the right way as there's some Last of Us / Stranger Things type bodies and stuff on the wall. The Last of Us gets a big reference later with the reveal, and we see someone stuck to the wall just like the games in show. Now we learn that these are hunters as Frenchie picks up a bottle of hunter's liquid. This is deer urine that's used to both mask human scents and also attract bucks. It's a Vought branded product because of course it is, with gunpowder being on the bottle. Looks to be very old though, as the suit looks young on the case, and it's possibly the same age as he was in the flashbacks to the 80s in season 3. He was Soldier Boy's sidekick and experienced abuse at the hands of his mentor. So it's a great thing to include with Soldier Boy being back again. We then see that the hunters turn on each other.
What if there is a monster here, but it's us?
Which is so deep. What if the monsters in the show is everyone? The V1 that was developed and used here though has mutated the plants and everything in the area. This has pushed out spores that turn people against each other. I even wonder if because of this that it got into the water supply of all America, and this is why the country's so divided. Frenchie then calls The Last of Us The Walking Dead with mushrooms, but this situation is a bit more like 28 Days Later. Reminds me a lot of Mother's Milk's origin in the comics as well, as in those, Mother's Milk's mother worked at a dog food cannery that used to be a Vought lab. The company never cleaned up the place after working on Compound B, and like Fort Harmony, it all became polluted. It led to Milk's mother becoming infected with V, and because of this, Milk and his brother were born with powers. Due to this, his brother died as the sudden growth led to his head being crushed in his football helmet. His dad sued Vought, like he said last week, and in the comics this was due to his mother's exposure as well. Now speaking of Milk, he laughs at Kimiko and Frenchie, calling them Romeo and Juliet and giving them 6 months. It's something that foreshadows the ending, but I do wonder if the show is going to go a little bit differently. Last week they had a chat and revealed that they have wildly different ideas of life after the war. She wants kids while he wants to hit the thumbs up and live a nomadic lifestyle in Germany. I do think the pair will probably die though, with one possibly going first and then the other going out in a move that takes their own life as well. Sort of like Romeo and Juliet. In this episode, her darkest thoughts come out and she seems to hate how he abuses drugs. Luckily for her though, he's the only sane one due to his drug use. We then see as Homelander and Soldier Boy arrive. As we learn at the start of the episode, Homelander has super scent, so Frenchie goes to spray the deer urine. But yeah, they aren't happy and instead just plop down a motion sensor. We then cut to the Manhandled podcast as the Deep discusses the benefits of semen retention, which is something that's a big topic in the manosphere for some reason. Noir is still furious with him though, and the Deep is so dumb that he falls for a bitch says what. And maybe he does need a court-appointed person following him around. We then cut to Mason watching it as Starlight visits him. He's got a Men Lives Matter poster along with a myriad of others, including a Vought Tournament of Heroes. It's interesting though how the Deep is his idol, as he's the same person who sexually assaulted his half-sister. Like a typical teenager, he has posters of women on his wall as well, and these include Maeve, She-Line and Firecracker. He also has a big V-Bro Mango Thunder poster, which was the deodorant that Maverick wore last week. Beyond that, we can see that Translucent has been replaced by Black Noir. Now luckily, he never had Starlight's poster on the wall, as we can see his wanking station. Looks like my guy enjoys Firecracker's knockoff Cheetos as well after knocking one out, eh? She then tries to tell him that Vought lies about her are completely untrue. He then says that she blew her way into the 7, but instead of it being the Deep like the show, there it was A-Train, Homelander and Black Noir. The kid also goes to Homelander Academy, and this is just what Sister Sage wants. The truth will never break through to these kids because they're taught it at school and then come home and get bombarded by TikToks about it. But luckily for Starlight, she can get on his level as they share a family tradition. Other kids aren't as lucky though, and we see how deep the brainwashing goes as he's actually turned his own sister in. We then cut to Soldier Boy, who arrives at the place where he became super. It's like a more traumatic version of Steve returning to Camp Lehigh in The Winter Soldier. He even looks through old abandoned rooms similar to Steve Rogers later in that scene. This is also like Homelander's return to the lab that he made during season 4. We then cut through to the boys and learn the V1 is all gone. Someone has recently been there and has stolen the last few bottles. There's only a handful of soups who could have pushed through the 80 years of rust, but the heroine narrows it down to one person. Billy and Mother's Milk settle on Bombsight being the only soup who could have been the one to steal it, and he will be a character that appears in Vought Rising. There he's played by Myson Dye, who you might also recognise from Stranger Things. Now Bombsight hasn't been seen in decades, and Huey wonders why a suit with V1 would want even more. But part of me wonders if this is a ploy to bring Stormfront back from the dead. After her quote-unquote death, she might be still alive, kept on life support somewhere, and giving her V1 may help her resume to her former position. That might be a turbo reach, mate. The Vought Rising is a prequel, but I do feel like due to what we've seen with Ayakash being in her updated Stormfront costume instead of Liberty, that there are at least going to be some elements that are set in the present. It has also been rumoured that he'll appear in the season before that show, but let's hope it goes better than the Lamplighter finale. Cutting back to Starlight, we then see that a colleague of her father has turned up after Mason's tip-off. It's a lot like Bobby's brother in X2, and that little fucking snitch also called the authorities. I'm surprised that we didn't see Livewire here though, and this should have been a horrible end to the Starlight family reunion. What it does though is show that not everyone in a position of power is awful. Her father appeals to his friend by saying that they sit next to each other in church, and he even made him a dinner after Ed's wife died. But he's terrified as he could be put in jail too, as anyone who questions the regime is stomped down by it. It also shows that no one is safe around her until the entire Vought industrial complex is destroyed. We then cut to Homelander and Soldier Boy, and Homelander says that it smells like deer piss. Hey, Frenchie's plan worked! Soldier Boy says that the last time he was at Fort Harmony, he just returned from the front lines and was picking Nazi brains out of his hair. As we know, his newsreels are all fake though, and it's just like everything else that Vought does. The legend said that Soldier Boy wasn't at Normandy on D-Day, and the footage was only filmed once the danger was over. This is something that often happened during the war, with Stalin even having his media team creating videos of him landing at places to meet heroes even though he'd never actually been there. He also lies and says that only the best of the best of the best, sir, were selected for Dr. Vaught's trials. Again, we know the truth, and just like Homelander, he was basically a nepo baby who used his dad's connections to get selected for V1 trials. Now, despite surviving and coming home after the war, his abusive father just said he cheated and that real men don't take shortcuts. Soldier Boy then doesn't take it too well when Homelander brings up Stormfront, and again, it's clearly a sore subject for him. Homelander then gets owned by his father, as Soldier Boy says,
Oh, look, more Uggos. Friends of yours?
oh yeah. Soldier Boy is also so up his own arse that he doesn't realise that he's just become his own father. I feel like the theme of this episode is how fathers and how they often treat their kids can often lead to either positive or negative outcomes. Annie and Huey had kind ones, and thus they turned out okay. But characters like Billy especially had really bad ones, and he later berates Homelander for beating up Ryan, which he says is something he can relate to. Billy, of course, killed his dad just at the start of the season due to the abuse that he gave him, and I think it's basically the show kind of laying the seeds for where the arc's going to go with Ryan. The boys then realise the two of them are upstairs, and Mother's Milk lets slip they wanted to torch the V1. Huey has wanted to save Starlight and Kimiko, but secretly Milk and Billy have been working to not only destroy V1 but also use the virus to kill every soup. Kind of like Baron Zemo in the MCU. This is something which is similar to the comic book ending, albeit with the details slightly altered. Huey says that he did try and win over the group and says there is good in Butcher, but deep down he's a psychotic piece of shit who's no different from Homelander. They're both willing to do whatever it takes to win and have basically became monsters in order to gain victory. Milk also says that he cheered when Billy was dying and the group is clearly fractured and basically it feels like anything could split them up now. Huey even says he'll kill Billy again, foreshadowing some major events from the comics. It leads to a massive fight between the whole group after Billy attacks Huey. This moment again is just like the fight on the helicarrier in the first Avengers movie, and Huey mugs off Mother's Milk again.
Come on, MM. I mean, if Butcher will let you.
Bang a line, and it might be worth the crack to the face. Kimiko even reverts back to being a mute, and I think it shows that people are going back to their baser instincts. Clearly, this is the fate that befell every group that stumbled on Fort Harmony, and I love how the name Harmony is completely ironic as well. There's no fucking harmony here. Huey then runs off, and Carl Urban's line delivery at this point is just too good.
Oi, where'd you think you're going?
We then cut back to the father and son, where Homelander says Soldier Boy's brother won a Silver Star in World War II. As mentioned, we all knew this, but we learned that Soldier Boy cried and then pissed himself. Soldier Boy pisses himself a lot in the comics, and it basically also shows that he's nothing like Steve Rogers. He had a relatively easy transition from pencil neck dork to absolute Chad, and it does kind of feel like his origin story is more like Bucky Barnes. Obviously the Winter Soldier was frozen and kept in a chamber, much like Soldier Boy, and when we saw Bucky's origin story in the MCU, it was a big tortured one. He had a horrible time in Hydra's Super Soldier program in the flashbacks that we saw during Civil War, and it clearly left him a very fractured person. Soldier Boy also isn't the only one sent back to their past, as Homelander's locked in a cell similar to the one he grew up in. Soldier Boy knows every evil that this place is hiding and exposes his son to enriched uranium. Homelander is of course a Superman parody, and this is very much his kryptonite moment. Now this was done to see if the superheroes that Vought were creating could survive an atomic blast. Superman throughout his long history has also been left for dead next to kryptonite many times. The ironic thing is as well that if the boys didn't come here, everything would have been fine. Homelander would have been killed by his dad, they wouldn't need to get the V1, and everything would have been A-OK. But this scene also reminds me a lot of Superman in Flashpoint, where he's kept under a red light non-stop. The uranium is really doing a number on him though, and it's the first time that we've seen him so weak. Now I do feel like Homelander might actually get the V1 and become a god, but this could be a way to defeat him beyond the virus. Soldier Boy then says he plans to destroy any V1 he finds, just like Billy in Mother's Milk, because he hates his son so much. He then drops another amazing line.
I'm gonna go destroy any V1 that I find, you triple crown cock jockey.
Every single person hates Homelander, even the only person who should actually have any semblance of feelings for him. Frenchie then finds the cause of everything as Billy stumbles upon the character. He was looking for Huey but found something far better, which is a very weak and on the ropes Homelander. It's somewhat a repeat of their season 3 meeting at Billy's apartment, and their Homelander challenged him to a fight to the death, which I really hope we get to see. The soup is right where he wants him though, but Billy mate, you're monologuing and that's exposed you here. Butcher belittles him and then says he will never be happy. Homelander calls Ryan the son of God and can tell her Butcher doesn't have the virus as he would have used it by now. Star and Urban are absolutely superb here though, as they duel in a battle of words. And yeah, I can't wait to see these two throw down proper. Part of me wonders if Billy will take the V1 and Frenchie may even create a virus that only targets that version of Compound V. That would be the best way to go, I think, and it's something that would only take out the 3 most dangerous people in the world. Homelander then calls V1 his birthright, which is something I think might have been a reference to Superman Birthright. That might be a reach, but yeah, just when I heard it, I thought it was. Huey and Milk have a shootout as Kimiko attacks, and we get a triple threat as they've all gone fully crazy. I love how Mother's Milk also knows he's screwed when Kimiko bends a bar and they just then runs away. Huey then takes a note from the Quiet Place too and hides in what looks like a furnace. Luckily, Frenchie tricks Soldier Boy and leads him to the source of all these problems. This is when we see Quinn attached to the wall. We discover the scientist hated Soldier Boy as he saw him as rich and entitled. That hate for him has spread out into everything and is now seeping out into the rest of the world. I expect we'll explore this beef more during Vought Rising, and Soldier Boy wants to keep him like this and exclaims that he won. Frenchie then goads him into using his nuke powers to end the scientist and burn all the plant's roots and spores. Turns everyone back to normal, but I'm sure some of these home truths might stick around for a while. Also, did wonder why the radiation didn't hurt Frenchie or why he doesn't kill him or Billy after this. Soldier Boy does show some semblance of humanity as he says he's sorry, which does seem to intrigue Billy. They of course had a former alliance, but Soldier Boy was convinced by Homelander to join forces and kill Butcher. And yeah, like they also just used the virus on him in episode 2. They almost killed him, but he's like, oh, whatever, I'm gonna go see my son. I think in this point he's just accepted he wants death, and he's actually quite surprised that Homelander doesn't kill him. The boys then leave in a van as Mambo number 5 plays, and Kripke is really using those 90s classics for these scenes. Yes, Chumbawamba, and now this. We then cut back to Starlight as Mason apologizes for what he did, and her dad says he hopes they meet again. And somehow I think this may turn into a tragedy for Starlight. But then again, the worm survived, so there's that. Homelander manages to survive too and punches his way out the cell, only to find his dad crying. Soldier Boy just wants Homelander to kill him, but that's not going to happen. Thank God as well, as Ackle Soldier Boy is truly one of my favourite things in the show. Kimiko then thanks Frenchie, and we see an old A-Train Turbo Rush vending machine. This shows that he is somewhat still with them in spirit. Frenchie then says he used to be a feckless junkie man whore and says he wants to be anything she wants, but she doesn't want to change him. They're drifting apart as she's working on herself while he just loves chaos. Meanwhile, the other couple reunite and Starlight realizes that her and Huey are better together. Luckily, she was away though, or I think it would have got ugly. We then go to Billy watching the Russian experiments on Soldier Boy. We can see the date says 1986, which was around the time he was experimented on. And also like the time of the Chernobyl disaster, I believe. That's an ad lib, I'm adding that in there. I could look it up, but I'm too lazy. But I do even wonder if he caused that. But Billy knows there's another weakness, and that is radiation. As Soldier Boy said, he could burn the V from Homelander's veins, so I do wonder if Billy will use that knowledge to kill Homelander. Maeve did survive the explosion in season 3 though, so that might be a reach. But Milk and Billy haven't got a problem anymore, but I don't think that's the last fight they're gonna have. Also, he's wearing a Bad Bunny hoodie. We then cut to O-Father presenting Homelander as the all-American prophet. Firecracker says she used to believe in Jesus, but now she only believes in Homelander. Now, in recent times, I'm sure we've seen religious leaders clashing with political ones, and people have chosen sides because of this. Firecracker has chosen her side here though, but I think it's clear her heart's not in it, and Ashley can tell she's lying. O-Father then says they'll fulfill the Founding Fathers' dreams. And look, I have shown restraint by only bringing up Hamilton 4 episodes in, but I will tell you why I chose this as the episode to drop it in a minute. He then reveals the Democratic Church of America to rapturous applause, and even mentions Superman and calls him the prophet of America. The Nazis, of course, wanted to create a race of Supermen as well, which would be blonde-haired and blue-eyed Aryans. Homelander represents that, and he comes down, gets placed in front of the crucifix, and this symbolically shows how he's now replaced God. But Homelander still doesn't seem happy, and though he should be smiling and embracing his flock, he's got a face like a slapped arse. We then hear him take a breath and then get a version of the US national anthem. That breath seems like a gasp though, and funnily enough, Hamilton also ends with Eliza Hamilton gasping. Which is probably a reach, but that's why I used it in this episode. In the end though, it's almost like a breath of fresh air and the beginning of a new dawn of the Seven. Anyway, that takes us to the spoiler section, and if you don't want to know, hit the thumbs up and turn off now. Now, comic book readers will likely recognize that this episode and the fight is very reminiscent of Billy exterminating each one of the boys and their allies. We mentioned how Huey seemed a bit more charged at the end of the episode, and throughout we've watched him bicker with Butcher. This reminds me a lot of when he was fighting Billy at the end of the comics, which I feel is what the writers are going for. In the comics, Billy killed each one of the boys so they couldn't stop him and his plan of wiping out the Supes. Kimiko and Frenchie have also been discussing their future, and they seemingly break up in this one. The end of the comics is very tragic for them though, as Billy blows both of them up at the Flatiron. As we've seen, she's very, very durable, so I don't know if that's gonna work on the one in the show. But I don't know about Frenchie, and I think that the Romeo and Juliet line may come true, with there maybe even being a kiss with the virus. The only couple who survive are Huey and Annie though. Well, the Deep survives as well, but I can't see the TV show Deep surviving, which is a shame, but I'm there if you want me to take over. I will go method. Kimiko also has far more character development in the show than in the comics, so I think it would be quite sad to see her die after getting over all her trauma. So the show may be going a different route. But yeah, that wraps up the episode, and of course, love to hear your thoughts. Please drop a like on the video, and also drop a comment with all your thoughts below. If you want to follow us on Instagram as well, and keep up to date with what we're doing, then make sure that you check us out at Heavy Spoilers. Did you know as well that members of the channel also get early access to videos like this every single week, and if you click the join button you get at least one breakdown a week before anyone else. Costs just 99 cents a month, it all goes towards great causes and great costumes as well, and huge thank you to everyone who does that. Now, if you want something else to watch, we've got our Invincible finale on screen right now, lots of stuff to talk about in that, and yeah, hope they see you over there right after this. If not though, huge thank you for sitting through this video. I've been your host Paul, you've been the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.